Alright, so we've got Dr. Owen here today with us, our 2023 new graduate, who we've sort of put through our new graduate program, and I was going to just spend some time. Sorry, I sprung this upon you today.
No, I'm ready.
Yes, to have a chat about the experience, see how it's been so far, and I guess what the experience has been like as a new graduate working in our practice.
Yeah, absolutely. I reached out to you in the middle of last year because
Yes.
I was always really set on going somewhere either rural or regional for the experience. And I feel like I've struck gold with the middle ground because whilst it is regional and there is so much experience and so much, dental disease in the community, there's also stuff to do. So I feel like I'm not isolated and I feel like I've been able to develop a really good network of friends.
Okay, cool. And I guess, we can talk about a little bit about, I guess, what, Launceston has been like. You sort of spoke about there being a lot of things to do as well, about having a whole group of friends, not just hanging out with the dentists within the practice, which I'm very happy about. You can just let me know a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, it's a very community-based environment, not just at work, but I find everyone's really friendly. It is a bit of a small town vibe as well. Everyone knows everyone.
Yes.
But I think what I've tried to do is implement some hobbies outside of work as well. So going to the gym, catching up with different people who visit, found a local church as well. So I feel like I've slowly but surely made some connections outside of work too.
Yeah, I think one of the things about being in Tassie is that everyone visits you. I get so many messages saying, "Hey, I'm coming down to Launceston, can I visit?" And I find that we're playing host to a lot of people who live here.
Absolutely, I find as well.
So, can you talk a little bit about the sort of space that we're in, about your experience with the sort of technology, the sort of workflows that you've been exposed to, and was that, I guess, too far beyond what you are capable of utilizing, or do you find that your experience with growing with tech has been smooth? What has it been like? What has it been like?
Yeah, it's a great question. And we're sitting in a room with 3D printers behind us as well. I think one of the standout points for me joining this practice was observing how technology driven you are. But in saying that, I was a bit apprehensive because I didn't know how I'd be able to implement that with my new grad based knowledge. But I find that from starting up until this point, I've been very supported with even just the simple bread and butter. And something that you always tell me is to start with the basics and master those and then kind of build from that, which I've really, really appreciated. I mean, we had 4 weeks at the start of just paid observation, just to get comfortable with basic communication skills, to see the workflow, because I know you guys are very big on four-handed dentistry, which is something I had experienced at uni as well. And you run a very tight ship in the sense that there are so many staff members and the DAs are so good at what they do. Everyone has a very purposeful role, and just fitting myself into that in a smooth way was really good.
Have you found it difficult to put yourself, integrate yourself with the team? Have you found it difficult at all?
No, I think it's been quite seamless. I think it really helps when every single member has a very clear purpose and they know how to execute their job so well. Even when I was observing for that 1 month period, I found that every dentist was so welcoming. They would take the time to kind of explain what they're doing. I think they're used to having people looking over their shoulder.
Yes, and I guess when they, a lot of them when they started in the same sort of environment. Right? So what we always tell them is that just think about when you were a new grad, like how it was like to not know what is going on, to just move to a new place, and you would have loved someone to help you, just like how when we started, when we were smaller, it was just my wife and myself, and it was us teaching the dentist. And then I think it's very nice that it's sort of gone on to become its own thing, where the more senior dentists are now happy to help you guys, right, in terms of or whatever you need from a day-to-day, because that's so important, because you never know when you're going to run into trouble, and I think like not knowing what you don't know as a new graduate is a big thing, and that's something that we worked on a lot this year as well. And I don't know whether you want to go there talking about case assessment, and I guess how your experience has been like when you thought that the case was going to be level 3 in difficulty, and then when we went through it, it was more like a level 8, right? And then a couple of times we sort of knew that it was going to be difficult going in. What was your experience with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the very humbling points about the first time this year is initially I, like I said, didn't know what I didn't know, and there's still a few things that I have a long way to grow and learn in many aspects. But what I appreciated is those moments where I did bite off more than I could chew, and I always had someone who could help me either with bailing me out or guiding me through over my shoulder, or kind of having someone to debrief with after to avoid that happening again. But certainly there have been a few times where I've landed up in a situation where clinically I've kind of reached my max, and it's helped kind of guide the way I case select and the way I pre-plan beforehand with the other dentists.
Mm-hmm. And then how good is it to be able to do it under general?
Yeah.
I think, when you came in, did you do general anesthetic in uni?
No, we observed in uni, but we didn't operate.
Yeah, but I mean, I think it's nice because the patient's out, and it's a very controlled environment where we could spend a little bit more time giving pointers, and if you look around the shoulder and just figure out, I guess, spend the time to where you can't really do typically when the patient's awake, going, do this and then do that. Did you find it helpful? Did you?
Absolutely. One of my, I guess, favorite moments this year so far was that surgical extraction you helped me with under general anesthetic, and it was just so reassuring having yourself sort of behind my shoulder and guiding me, but I was still able to perform the procedure.
Yeah.
It was very uplifting as well. There were so many invaluable take-home points that I had to quickly write down after the procedure. But you're so right, it's something that can't always be done when the patient is awake.
Yes. Yeah, and also the clearance. We went through, and I guess just methodically, right? When you do a clearance, not just ripping a whole bunch of teeth out. There's like a sequence that we sort of go through and we think it through. So I thought it was very helpful for you as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it's so lovely to see the patients that come in and they have all the work done and then they leave, and they often have such great things to say after the procedure because it's not as scary and daunting.
Yes, it's when they wake up. It's great. Yeah, I mean, I love general anesthetic for the bigger sort of procedures because you can just, you don't have to worry about what the patient's going to remember. You don't have to worry about, just worry about doing a good job, right?
And the great thing about it as well is that I can observe you and ask as many questions.
Yes, I think there was a point where we had like 6 people.
Yes,
That was fine because the patient wasn't awake, and I guess I'm used to it. So yeah, that was good. And how has you moved here from Brisbane? You graduated from Griffith. How has the move been in terms of the weather change?
Yeah.
I'll
correct you, from the Gold Coast.
Yes, from the Gold Coast. Yes.
So I moved from the Sunshine State, and it has been really cold.
Yes. Well, spring is coming.
Spring is coming, but they say it doesn't warm up until the end of the year. So I'm bracing myself, but we're getting there slowly. I've invested in an electric blanket.
There you go.
You guys call it the heat pump. We call it the air pump. So
I call it the air pump.
Okay.
Yes, I grew up in Singapore, so well, even warmer, right? But yes. How has it been? I mean,
it's been challenging to get used to the cold, but I guess we're always indoors, and I've got the equipment now, so I'm all set for next week.
I think one thing I always say about being in a cold climate is that it's easier to keep warm than it is to cool down if you're overheating, right? So
you can't take everything off.
That's right. So there's only so much you can fan yourself, right?
Yes.
So okay, and if you can, what else? Sorry, I was just like, hey, I think it's a good idea for us to talk about this. So I haven't really come up with a full list of questions. How about you growing as a clinician in your first year out? Because I think that when you're in uni, right, I think in 5th year, something as simple as caries removal, right? You will know this, and I think in 5th year, when you're done with the prep, the demonstrator sometimes just goes, "You good?" and then you just say, "Yeah, I'm good," and then that's that, right? So I find that whenever someone new joins, we always have to spend a bit of time calibrating these sort of things to make sure that we both are on the same page in terms of what we expect when we something as simple as removing caries, something as simple as putting a matrix on, which I think is very relevant for a new graduate. So could you speak about that experience in the first year?
Yeah. I think when I graduated, I was like, yes, I can remove caries. That is basic. That's like year 3 level. But like I mentioned before, just mastering the bread and butter. I think one of the great things I've really benefited from is taking photos, particularly at the start of even my cavity preps and after the restoration as well, and being able to go through them and self-evaluate and then kind of talk with other dentists and yourself and see if there is any way we can even improve the bread and butter and the simple things. So I've learned a lot from documenting a lot of my procedures, even the really simple ones. And it's the small 1% changes, like you always tell us, that at the end make such a big difference.
And I think learning how to document it as well, just learning how to take a straight photo sometimes can take a while. And I mean, I gotta hand it to you because just your attitude towards learning, just that whole, I think sometimes you see a dentist, sort of join us and they're like, oh, I think I know everything, right? Like even new graduate dentists, sometimes they're like, like you say, caries removal is a third-year thing, but there are so many nuances, so many little things. And I think to do dentistry at a high level, I think you have to be picky. And so I hand it to you. You've done very well in terms of running with that pickiness and not be like, oh my god, why am I doing this? So it's been very, very great to see as well. Yeah, and
I've really, really valued the feedback, no matter how big or how small as well, because I'm a huge believer that any improvement is better than nothing, even if it's just mastering the basics too. But I do appreciate as well some of the more complex topics that we've discussed and the courses that you've run as well, with flying people in just to talk about, like for example, socket preservation.
How was that?
It was really inspiring, actually.
Yes.
It was beyond my scope currently, but concepts like that makes me really think, whilst I'm talking to a patient, perhaps we could discuss these topics. It's nice having clinicians that I can refer to as well and observe them performing the procedures.
And I think as well as it's about the, just setting yourself up, right? Like, when someone joins us, we talk about, learning how to section teeth and, learning to not use the forceps, which I think for a lot of dentists who are not used to it is a big jump. But when David came, you could see how he takes teeth out without forceps, right? And so yes, even though your scope is, you still have a bit more to go before you start doing implants, but there is nothing stopping you from learning the core skills, right? The sectioning teeth, the how to raise a clean flap, how to do a clean surgical, which if when you're starting to do more wisdom teeth, we're starting to do more surgery, it makes a big difference. And also, things like putting cords in when you are, starting to do more crown and bridge, when you are doing, 6 preps, 8 preps, 10 preps, right? It has to be on point. So if you can speak about that, how about crown and bridge? How about your experience with the CEREC system? Which for a lot of people, yes.
CEREC is extremely humbling.
Yes.
My crown grips are okay, and having it blown up on the screen, definitely take a step back and reevaluate everything. But I think it's really helped facilitate sort of a really steep upward learning curve.
Yes.
It's definitely been challenging, particularly my first CEREC. I think it took me a very long time. But
we knew that was going to happen.
Yes,
right?
and we planned.
And yes, because every time someone new joins, even if they've got experience and they haven't used a CEREC before, it is always take a time. It's not going to be as straightforward as you think.
Absolutely. But I'm starting to build more confidence with crown and bridge work, and the CEREC I think has really helped with that as well. Particularly with going through my crown preps with you as well. And picking up on the small nuances to help just accelerate or refine certain areas.
Yeah.
Sure.
So it's always about refinement, which is very important. And like I said, you just have such a great attitude towards that, which is super nice to see, right? And so I'd like to touch on communication, because I feel like communication is always a muscle that's not very exercised, and there usually is a very steep learning curve as well. What's your experience and with how you communicated? How has it changed since the time you graduated? I think it's been like, what, 6 months, 8 months?
Yeah, 6 months.
6 months? Yeah, so it's half a year you've been with it. So have you found that things have changed? Have you found that your communication style has evolved?
Absolutely. I think doing placement and uni with public or Queensland Health patients and kind of what you say, they just kind of go with because it's free for the most part. And then channeling that into private practice where people are paying, expectations might be a little bit different, finances are tight currently as well. So I think my communication style has evolved hugely. And I think I learned that mostly too, it was a matter of I didn't know what I didn't know yet. So that initial observation period was really eye-opening because we have 9 other dentists, 10 dentists all up here. So I observed 9 different clinicians and was able to see how they communicate and how they get case acceptance and what they do with difficult patients and how they navigate that.
Yeah.
So I think I sort of built a little bit of a book of phrases and techniques based on those 4 weeks of just observing.
Can I also say that what I really like about you as well is how you note everything down.
Yeah.
And
I was standing in the corner.
yes, and I find that the people that do that the most are the ones that grow the fastest, because there is nothing like jotting it down and referring back to it and just making sure that you trust the process. And I think you've done it very, very well as well. Yeah. So if you could have one tip about communication to someone who's new, what would you say?
Ooh, I would say don't assume, like as a very, very broad tip that kind of encompasses, don't assume the patient's financial abilities or their status. Don't assume that they're not going to want the highest level of care or that more complex treatment option. Because patients always surprise me.
Yeah.
And I find that if I assume perhaps that they're on the same page and they want a certain level of treatment, and then I often find I can either overwhelm them or I can miss opportunities to sort of give them that most ideal treatment.
So don't assume. I think that's a big one. Yes, and I've learned that myself as well because I find that the people that you don't think at the start they're gonna do full months rehab end up being the ones they do, and I guess it's all about what they value, right, and building that value for them as well, that they see that it makes a difference in their lives, and I find that when they're in temp phase and they can see that the way they chew is different, the pain's gone, and things are more comfortable, things are looking better, and they start becoming more and more trusting. But before that, sometimes it's tricky. Yeah. Okay. So how have you dealt with things not going right? Have you any scenarios where, I haven't heard of any big ones, right? But certainly, sometimes there's some difficult patients, there's some difficult cases. So how have you navigated that process?
Great question. I think definitely as a new grad, there are multiple times throughout a week where little things don't go to plan and you have to kind of troubleshoot and develop a plan on the spot. One thing that has really helped is I just always remember one of our core values, which is integrity. So I just want the best possible outcome for the patient. If that means calling the shots early, just getting another clinician to come in, even for a second set of eyes, I've really valued and appreciated, because we do have so many dentists here. If you're not free or if someone else isn't free, then there's always someone who can pop in and just give me some feedback quickly or point me in the right direction. In terms of a specific case, I think kind of touching back on Sarah, I had a crown that was a little bit more tricky. It was subgingival, and I didn't anticipate how much time it would eat up and how tricky it would be. And I had one of our colleagues come in and very graciously help me throughout that process and troubleshoot with me in the moment, and the patient left with a crown that we're both really happy to provide her. And then after that, just kind of following up and getting feedback on how to avoid that happening in the future is something I really value.
I think, when something like that happens, I think it's so important to have, somebody to show you how the way out, right, essentially. And, I find that a lot of these cases, once you see it being managed once, the next time something similar happens, you would have a much better idea about how you're going to manage it. And so, I think, having the ability to ask for help, having the sense to ask for help, sometimes it's a big one because we interview a lot of candidates every year, right? And sometimes, when we talk about cases, they end up telling me that they would ask for help, an hour, 2 hours in for an extraction, and I think just knowing when to ask for help, when to sort of push on and I think I'm going to be able to manage this. That balance is tricky to manage. You don't want to be in a place where you never learn anything because everyone does everything for you, but you also don't want to be in a place where you're on your own, right? And sometimes as a new graduate, you truly sometimes are out of the depth, and you gotta make sure that someone's there to help you out when things don't go well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So how has your for me, I'm always talking about mentorship. I'm always talking about I guess teaching adventures, uplifting everyone. What has your experience been like? We try to sort of, we know that things that a new grad struggle with, and we try to structure it such that we make sure that we go through these things. We make sure that we go through respiratory tracts, make sure we go through, endo, we make sure we go through a whole bunch of stuff like taking teeth out. And what's your experience been like? Everyone these days talks about their mentorship program, and I guess I'm interested to find out your perspective of how that whole thing has looked like over here, and what is your experience been like?
Yeah, absolutely. Mentorship is such a buzzword, and I remember in final year we were all talking about how we really wanted a practice with mentorship. But I don't know if we truly knew what we were looking for. We just wanted mentorship. But what I guess my experience here, and the reason why I sought out this practice in particular is because you very prominently advocate for mentorship. And I can see that the mentorship program here is very structured. So you do it with quite a few new graduates that you do hire. And I guess what I valued most with the structured mentorship program is the sort of 3 weekly dentist meetings where we go through and dissect everyone's cases that they have built up throughout that period. But also just having the one-on-one mentorship sessions that we have as well with yourself, just going through tips and tricks and questions and challenges and things that went well. I really valued that, not just in person, but being able to message you at sort of any hour of the day. So
Yes.
like night messages.
So I'm used to it.
Yeah. But having that feedback and being able to work with that, not only in the clinic, but even outside as well.
Cool. And I guess let's talk a little bit about the 3 weekly dentist meetings, right? Because I think that it's very nice to be able to see, we've got clinicians with different experience levels, right? And a lot of times, they might be coming in with like severe backaches, we'll change the bite, we'll do this, we'll do that, and something that, I guess you wouldn't really have not that you wouldn't really have the skills, but you wouldn't, I guess, you probably wouldn't tackle, right? Like more tricky cases. And do you find that it's been helpful in terms of opening your eyes to what possibilities there are when you're talking to your own patients, instead of just, I guess, focusing on single tooth dentistry, just focusing on, filling a hole and then doing a crown here when there is wear everywhere else, and just adopting a more holistic view of treating patients? Because how's that been for you?
Absolutely. I think just summing up, it would just be exposure. Just seeing those more complex cases and seeing how they're managed and how they're tackled. Even though initially, if I saw it, I wouldn't have the same thought process or trajectory in terms of the way I treatment plan it. I feel more confident now when I see really overwhelming big cases like
Yes,
that.
overwhelming is a good word. I remember you telling me actually, you're like, I'm overwhelmed.
When I see that, I now know I have either a point of reference where I can bring up this case and figure out a plan, but I also have so many different clinicians that I can refer to and observe how they manage the case, but also just being able to communicate what their options are because I know what their options are.
Cool. And have you found that the way that you look at these cases has changed over the last 6 months? You found that like how you would approach a case like this when you were a new graduate, when you just joined this versus now, has that evolved? Has that changed any form at all?
I think at the start I very much had tunnel vision. Like I saw one tooth and I saw the problem with that tooth, and I was like, yes, I can fix that tooth. But after courses like tongue given with the
yes, we'll talk about that next. So that was a time when you were pretty new in our practice and you're still quite warm. And if you can just talk a little bit about what it was like and what did you learn. And I mean, it was a very dense topic, right? Occlusion, a very big, meaty one. And Tom came to run a 2-day course and he even managed to learn how to use a lead gauge. It was great. So you can speak a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I was so inspired by those 2 days of just jam-packed information. My mind was actually blown. I was sitting there like, what? I just didn't know how complex occlusion was and how it manifests in so many different ways and how it is the answer for so many different problems as well. And I feel like I have been able to sort of piece together a few things and have a few epiphanies with some patients where I'm like, whoa, that makes sense. It's because of the occlusion or the interferences when they're grinding at nighttime. And I guess not only identifying it, but also screening for it and actively looking out for it. And it's helped with my instead of just honing in on one tooth, kind of looking at the big picture.
And I think I think the big thing that I see with dentists who look at single tooth dentistry sometimes is the just you need to raise the bite. How much you raise it by, and not just that, but the fact that you've done like 3 pounds on the back, just sort of set you back because you've just sort of treated them to this conclusion, and you might have to reorganize it. So cool, and I think you're starting to learn more and more advanced things. But what's next for you?
Ooh.
What do you want to? Where do you want to go? Because we've got different clinicians doing very different things with very different interests. So actually, could you speak quickly a little bit about that? And how about you? Where do you want to go?
Oh, great question. I, at the start, just wanted to do everything, and I still do because I want to just build up the basics and in terms of being well-rounded and being competent in quite a few areas. But something very exciting and something that sort of ignited my passion for this was the GA day, where we're sort of going through that surgical exo. And I would love to really start tackling and nailing wisdom teeth removal. I feel like we've set a really good foundation in terms of being able to section teeth and kind of, if it turns surgical, how to manage that. And I know we're sort of talking about just starting with being able to competently section, competently remove bone and competently raise flaps before sort of going in and tackling Twizzies and getting on board with that. So I'm excited to kind of ease my way into wisdom teeth.
Cool, you're in the right spot. I mean, we do a lot of very, very tricky ones. And I think, even the GA day, right, where we were, I remember it was like a lower 7 that was sort of masquerading as an 8. And we went through the exact same steps, right? Like a flap like an 8, flapped it, remove bone like an 8, section to like an 8. So, it's these sort of easing you in so that, when you start doing more and more difficult cases, you can do it well. And you can, I guess the time that we spend laying down the foundation really, really serves you in good state when you want to do more complex things, because oftentimes bad habits, they don't sort of manifest themselves until you're doing something hard, and then you're like, oh my god, like what got me here can't get me anywhere more than this, and then you got to go back and do those habits and then come back again. And so what we like to do is we like to figure out, yes, it's important to be well-rounded, yes, it's important to know, I guess, general dentistry generally, but you can get, I think it's difficult to get really good at 10 different things, right? And certainly you can see all different dentists working on different facets, right? And trying to get good at different niches that they've identified. So it's good to hear that. I'll keep that in mind, and we can do more cases, certainly, right? And is there, for the people who are applying, is there anything that you would like to tell them? Is there anything that you would like to say to anyone who's thinking about the big move to Launceston? Somebody who might even be 1 year out of yourself, what would you tell someone like that?
Yeah, absolutely. I would have to say it's daunting, it's challenging, moving and just kind of branching out and going to a new state, but it is also so incredibly rewarding. And whilst it is regional, it's fun. It's still really good.
It's easy to fly to Brisbane and Sydney, and Melbourne.
Very easy to fly to Melbourne. But also in the sense that I've been so grateful with how established this practice is. It's such a big practice, and we get so many new patients, which I was actually kind of surprised by, with how many patients I had in my books that were just comp exams, and I was able to sort of slowly but organically grow my books. So I sort of had that leg up. So there's lots of work to do here, and you will deal with all sorts of things, experiences, just extreme dental decay, but also patients who are wanting to really invest in their smiles and sort of build things from the ground up.
And how about the team, the staff, the other dentists? I think the environment really makes a difference in your experience. And so is there anything that you want to talk about that?
I'm grateful for the 9 other dentists. I feel like...
To be happy to hear that.
I'm not paid to say that. I genuinely like them.
I think everyone here is nice,
Everyone's nice.
Yes.
Like the DAs and the auxiliary staff are just so welcoming and friendly, and it's so nice just having everyone. I guess supportive is the best way to kind of sum it all up. Everyone's very supportive and friendly, and it just feels like a really nice, happy community.
Even Rob.
Yes.
Who's semi-retired. He struggles with computers, but I think he's getting there, and he came for the exocad course, and he was, I'm going to do some cases. So that's good. So, I think I've covered a lot of stuff. Thank you so much. And, I think we're always trying to, showcase our practice to the community, and want to, do the best that we can for any dentist that joins us. So I really appreciate you taking the time. At very short notice, I was like, okay, I think we've got both a bit of time today. Let's just find some time and have a chat. So thanks so much.
My pleasure.
Yes,
And
perfect.
if you have any questions at all or would like to reach out, I'd be more than happy to talk to you and send a message and let you know what it's like as a new grad.
Sorry, are you gonna tell them your Instagram handle?
Oh, Oman.Hartley.
Yes. I'll tag you.
Yes,
Yes.
exactly.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah.